Ideally, your employer would be giving you opportunities for growth, but if you don't see that you're getting much of that, you can supplement it. Employees perceived as the least technically competent are quickly promoted.
So would you say a solution might be to avoid promotion? Hello, welcome to our channel. My name is Dimitri DeSous. This is my associate, Dr. Carl Dietrich, and we are here to discuss matters regarding software-defined radios, ranging from technical to professional. Dr. Dietrich, today, would you like to tell us what we're discussing?
We'll be talking about a couple of pitfalls that might affect technical professionals. These were first identified as problems that could affect organizations, but of course they affect the people involved as well. And particularly if you're a technical professional with a strong interest in continuing to do technical work, then these will be of interest to you. And later on, we'll be talking about some of the professional development opportunities that we provide, including this channel and an introductory course in software-defined radio, which is a topic that brings together many other topics within electrical and computer engineering and computer science. And although that may not be your personal focus, it may be an example of a way that you might avoid some of these pitfalls, or at least cope with them if you encounter them in your career.
Yeah, great. So in regards to these pitfalls, there are two specifically that we would like to talk about, right? So the Dilbert and the Peter Principle. Mm-hmm. If you could, for the viewers, the audience here, just explain briefly what those principles are.
The Peter Principle was described in the late 1960s by a Canadian author whose last name was Peter, and he observed and kind of semi-humorously that people in organizations tended to be promoted to the level of their incompetence rather than their competence. And the theory is that people would be promoted successively until the skills from the previous position would no longer transfer to an extent that would make the person effective in the new position. So they're, in that sense, incompetent. And the idea then is that everyone ends up in a position that they're really not very good at, and that has an adverse effect on the organization. About 25 years later, in the mid-90s, Scott Adams, creator of the Dilbert comic strip, proposed the Dilbert Principle. And the idea there is that the employees perceived as the least technically competent are quickly promoted to a management role so that they can do less harm than they would as an incompetent member of the technical staff.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I hear that all the time, if you can't do it, you're typically promoted to a management position. So I've heard that kind of buzzing around amongst people in the lab, things like that. So what would you say the implications are of an unwanted or maybe even perhaps a premature promotion from a technical to a management position?
Yes, so these principles were first described from the perspective of the organization and their effect on the organization, but they still have an effect on the people involved. And particularly if you're a technical professional who enjoys that technical work and wants to stay involved in some capacity as a technical contributor, then either of these would have some problems. For one, you may feel overwhelmed in the new management position because you may not have much familiarity with management, or you may not have life experience that would predispose you to be an effective manager. Another thing is, if you really do have a strong technical interest, then you may feel sidetracked from that, where you've been kind of shunted off in a different direction where you're no longer able to contribute technically. You may question whether your reports, the people who work for you, would have respect for you if perhaps you don't have that much technical experience. How are they going to perceive that? How will that affect your effectiveness in the new role? Are they going to see you as somebody who, maybe wasn't very good as a technical contributor, or just doesn't have that much experience to be able to guide them well? So there's a lot of potential frustration that can occur on the part of an employee who's promoted in a way that tends to fit into one of these situations described by the Peter Principle or the Dilbert Principle.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think of, a scenario maybe perhaps where upper management does see some value in somebody who's a bit more technically proficient, being in a management position, perhaps maybe they can offer a perspective that could guide projects along in a much more effective way. But there is apprehension from that technical employee to transition into something like that. So would you say a solution might be to avoid promotion, and how would one do that in such a way that it's not perceived by maybe their bosses as a lack of ambition or a desire to not continue to grow or progress in the company?
Well, many companies have technical as well as management tracks where it's possible to advance while staying in a technical role. So you'll see things like senior engineer, engineer 2, engineer 3, that kind of thing, all the way up to CTO in a company. Now, that's not to say that the tracks are perfectly parallel to what you would have on the management side, but there is an effort to reward outstanding technical contributors and to provide pathway for advancement for people who want to stay in a more technical role. And I'd also say, and maybe we get into this a little bit more later, but even if you find that you enjoy the new role, there are some things that you might want to do that are similar to what a technical employee would do to avoid the like promotion or a transfer to a management track being their only way forward.
Yeah, okay. So how would you describe everything we've discussed so far in the context of maybe software-defined radio related positions and jobs, careers?
Software-defined radio is inherently interdisciplinary, and so if it's not your area, and perhaps you don't see it as especially relevant to your own work, think of it as an example of a multidisciplinary systems engineering approach, where in the case of software-defined radio, we have multiple technologies going all the way from the antenna, the radio frequency front end, analog to digital, and digital to analog converters, and then you've got some processing hardware and other associated digital hardware. You've got some software from the operating system all the way up to the application software that implements the radio functionality. And you can see all those technologies coming together and how you put them together to make an effective system and negotiate some of the trade-offs. And we have some learning opportunities on this channel and elsewhere that we'll talk about, including an online course that we're developing and we'll be offering soon. So that's that kind of perspective that you get, in addition to the experience that you get from the hands-on projects like the ones on this channel in the case of software-defined radio, or like the ones in the course, will give you some increased confidence and some increased technical proficiency. If you find that ideally your employer would be giving you opportunities for growth through challenging assignments, challenging technical assignments, and through training that they would either provide or support. But if you don't see that you're getting much of that, you can supplement it with things like what I've discussed in the case of software-defined radio. So that's a way to, one, increase your value as a technical contributor, and then what happens, you might ask, what if you like that management role after all? And maybe you did, or you didn't think you would, but you do. It has its rewards, and not just the money, but it's the chance to organize and lead a project or the team. And there's some of the same kinds of rewards or satisfaction that you might get from building a successful product. If you can get a successful team together that becomes very productive. Hey, that's great. If you find yourself in more of a sales role, that has its advantages. Maybe you like the travel, you like interacting with a lot of people, the clients that you see, and that kind of thing. And maybe you, on the other hand, maybe you do some kind of internal workforce development and training. And so, sometimes I've heard, if you can't do it, teach it. Well, you want to be able to do your job well, and you want credibility and respect and effectiveness, of course, which will earn that for you. And one way to do that is to keep developing yourself technically. And so just studying technologies like software-defined radio is a great way to do that.
Yeah, so you mentioned technologies like software-defined radios. Could you give us some examples of other technologies or approaches that are somewhat cross-disciplinary to software-defined radios?
Sure. There's some of those, and these are cases where even having studied software-defined radio, like if you happen to be interested in radio for some reason, but it's not your main job function, just having that exposure to an interdisciplinary technology like that, and some of the systems engineering challenges can translate to other engineering disciplines, things like audio engineering, for example. So we're working with acoustic signals that are translated to digital signals instead of radio signals that are, and then we're processing them digitally using some of the same techniques and some of the same hardware. Also staying in the acoustic realm, but at higher frequencies, perhaps we'd have things like sonar and acoustic sensors. And even in robotics, some of the control theory principles that come into play in software-defined radio for things like synchronization, automatic gain control, and transmit power control are also relevant to controlling motion of objects in three-dimensional space.
Yeah, great. So it sounds like there are a lot of different things that you could do, again, with these disciplines. The important thing that stands out is knowing where you can go to leverage resources, information in order to become more confident in learning these things, obviously to avoid the Dilbert Peter principles. Where does this channel fit in as it relates to those resources and opportunities?
On our channel, we have things like step-by-step, do-it-yourself, work-along project videos where you can watch us build a system or an application and work along with us. And we provide resources for that. Now, the channel is new, so we're still building out a lot of this, but you can already see we have some videos for an SDR-based scanner that uses some common technologies like the RTL SDR, relatively low-cost software-defined radio receiver, the Raspberry Pi single-board computer, and the open-source and free GNU Radio software-defined radio development kit. And we show you how to put those together, going all the way from downloading and installing the operating system on the Raspberry Pi, installing the appropriate software for the SDR development, and all the way through to development of a complete portable scanner. So that's we've got something that can be built for a few $100s, roughly the price of a transistor radio when those were relatively new in the 60s and 70s. So when portable radios first became popular, those could receive AM and FM signals, just broadcast signals for what's more than what you'd pay for a radio receiver now, but about what you would pay for when they were new. You can build something that's much more versatile, because by changing the software, you can change its functionality, make it work in different frequency bands and with different kinds of signals. So there's one example, and we'll have more. We'll have some other interesting ones. And then we also have a software-defined radio course, and it's both hands-on and online. It's convenient because it's online, but you'll get either a shopping list or a box with a development kit, so that you can work along with hands-on projects and examples. We'll have, initially at least in real time, we're going to have some video sessions where we talk about some of the enabling technologies for software-defined radio, and we also start working through some of the projects that you can continue. And once or twice a week, we'll have a real-time consulting and help session to help you with those projects, where you can either show the results that you've achieved by getting the project to work, right, or ask questions if you're stuck, or if maybe you're stuck but maybe you don't feel like asking the questions. Maybe someone else who's taking the class will ask the question and get the answer that you need to finish your project. So that's one of the things we offer. We've found that there are other short courses in SDR and related topics, and there's much to learn from them as well. But this is the only one we've seen that has this combination of online, hands-on, real-time, potential asynchronous use because the sessions are recorded. And then we'll also have an asynchronous chat going where you can message course participants as well as the instructors for help or to share experiences or questions.
Right, so in other words, very, very interactable and very guided. So you're not just essentially out on your own trying to figure these things out, Google searching or anything like that. Yeah, that's excellent. So aside from us, what other resources would be available for, again, just self-development of these skills and understanding of these concepts?
So if you just go onto YouTube and look for software-defined radio, you'll find a wide range of videos, and there's a lot of good content out there. There's also a lot of redundancy in that content where there might be multiple good videos on a single topic. And there are some other resources, like the GNU Radio project has an excellent wiki with tutorials that you can work through. Now those don't come with real-time guidance. They're not interactive, but they're well documented. We go through those resources trying to select the best of what we learned from those resources and bring that into a class to bring you up to speed as quickly as possible from somebody who's just interested in software-defined radio. Maybe you're watching other people do it, and maybe you build a kind of a hello world program like a FM receiver or spectrum analyzer, and we're going to make that transformation from that to somebody who is an experienced, within the time that we have available, developer of software-defined radio applications. So you'll go from watching it to doing it and learn how to build still more advanced applications through using your existing skills. So if you're an engineer in radio frequency, wireless systems, or embedded development, you're some kind of software engineer or developer, then you can bring those skills with what you learn in this class to do even more. And I should mention too that we'll be using AI in the class, not relying on it, but we'll be learning how to use it to make our work easier once we're proficient at developing application software without the use of AI.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, this is excellent information. We hope it's been helpful. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off? Or
well, so I will say that the Dilbert Principle, the Peter Principle before it, were developed to explain some of the problems that organizations have, and they also present problems for people who get caught up in that kind of dynamic. But it's not all bad news. You can, to some extent, avoid that if you want to stay exclusively on the technical track. You can do things like learning about these multidisciplinary technologies that will prepare you for multiple types of future technical projects. And that perhaps one of these management roles or technical leadership roles, or even something in sales or training that feel like a detour from the technical path, they have their own rewards. And if you feel like you like those kind of jobs, but you want to keep your hand on the technical side and also increase your effectiveness and credibility in your new role, then some additional technical development, professional development, such as what our company offers, can be useful to you, whether you're in software-defined radio or some other field. So maybe you seek training opportunities in other fields entirely. Maybe you do want to learn some about software-defined radio and see how much of that would transfer back to your own application. or how you might use something like software-defined radio that's very flexible for rapid prototyping to develop applications that are useful to your area, whether it's some kind of smart grid application or communications for sensors that you might have in a factory or data center or something. So there are a lot of possibilities there. If you're interested in our course particularly or learning more about it, please see the email address on the screen. It's SDR Solutions Co. plus SDR short course at gmail.com. Email us there. We'll set up a time to talk about the course, see if it's a good fit for you. And when you get into the course, of course, you'll be able to ask us questions and ask your fellow course participants questions, as well as have all the programming and the material that we're developing specifically for the course. By the end of the course, you should be well prepared to learn more on your own, but if you want to have some assistance with that, we can arrange for some follow-on consulting. So there are a lot of opportunities in here, elsewhere, and we look forward to seeing you. If you come back to the channel, watch more of our videos, maybe work along with some of our projects. Again, if you are interested in an online course like that, we're definitely going to have that available for you. So thanks again for your time, and
thank you again for your time.